What's up, my friends? Welcome back to another episode of Dropkicks and Joysticks. I am your host, Bloody Bill Vox. It is November 29th as we are all gathering together again for another episode of this wonderful, wonderful show that I enjoy producing each and every week. For those of you that take the time to listen, be it here, on YouTube, or on Spotify, wherever you may listen, I appreciate that you take that time to do so. But this week, let's get right into it. We're going to talk about WWF Smackdown 2, Know Your Role from the PlayStation 1. And I got to fess up to something. At the close of last week's show, one of the hooks that I had for the topic being Smackdown 2 was that I was going to tell a story about how I spent a summer playing the game and brought it on a family vacation and it caused problems. Well, in doing my research for this episode, I don't know why I thought episode was the wrong word, but in doing my research for this episode, I discovered that they released both SmackDown 1 and SmackDown 2 in the same calendar year. SmackDown 1 came out in March. SmackDown 2 came out on November 21st, 2000. So that means my summer that I spent with a friend and the family vacation story is actually tied to the first SmackDown game, which means it was summer 2000 that I spent all that time playing. And I mean, I don't want to go too far into the story, but like we spent so much time playing it that we just sat there sweating our balls off in the not air-conditioned living room, and I lost 30 pounds because all we did was play and I drank water. Didn't do a lot of eating. Probably wasn't a healthy loss of 30 pounds. But anyway, I digress. But anyway, that story, unfortunately, will not be a part of the proceedings here because I discovered that it didn't apply. So I'm sorry about that. Sorry for the false advertising. Figured I'd fess right up to that so that way I don't just skip over it and pretend like it didn't exist. We'll tell that story again someday. It'll just be during the SmackDown episode. That's all. You know, it is what it is. We'll do what we do. As I sit down and record this episode, it is Monday night, 11:15 p.m., and I've got Monday Night Raw up on my phone next to me. Of course, unless you've been living under a rock, you know that CM Punk made his return to the WWE, and we talked about that on the Week in Wrestling, which you can also find on YouTube and Spotify in the same Dropkicks and Joysticks feed. But the reason I'm telling you this is there will probably be a break in recording because once CM Punk takes the mic, I kind of want to hear what he's got to say. So if we get the tape machine thing, that means I had to take a pause. But anyway, let's get into things while we're here, while we got that good time going on. As I noted already, SmackDown 2 came out on the PlayStation 1 November 21st, 2000. Made by our good friends at THQ and Ukes. Funny thing about this game, though, it makes a lot of sense out of why I confused the summer story, the beach story, why I confused it. I didn't buy SmackDown 2 when it came out. And it took doing my research and getting the notes and all of that to remember that SmackDown 2 coming out 8 months after SmackDown made me mad. To me, it was the exact same game. It was, to me, at the time, it was WWE trying to grab cash. And the year 2000, I'm 15 years old, so money is limited. And I already bought SmackDown in that calendar year. Probably didn't have the money for it. And it was just, to me, it was a weird situation. but that's not like the first time that that's ever happened before. I believe WCW games came out really close to each other as well. And you have to make those buying decisions. Reason I tell that story, or reason I tell that note, is because SmackDown 2 gets held up on a pedestal like a lot of the other games. Like it's held up like Here Comes the Pain and No Mercy. It's almost like it's the GOAT of the PlayStation 1 era. And for me, I just don't have that same love that everybody else has. To me, and maybe this is controversial, and maybe it's because I only experienced SmackDown, the original, but to me, the second SmackDown was just the same game, again, with some expanded modes. Like SmackDown 2, Know Your Role, to me, when it was being announced and all of that, kind of felt like what would be DLC today, if that makes sense. But we'll save all those notes for the very end when we get to the final review. Let's talk about the game notes brought to us by our good friends at the Smackdown Hotel. I really can't stress enough how great the Smackdown Hotel is with their resources and everything like that. But I also got to throw some love out to the Wrestling Wiki fandom pages. A lot of those are great. In fact, trivia notes frequently come from there, and I feel like we got to put some appreciation on those. So there is some trivia stuff. That's courtesy of the fandom pages. Our game notes are courtesy of the Smackdown Hotel. Same thing with the game features and the roster. Any other fun stuff here in terms of notes? Nope, that's it. Our Survivor Series 2000 results when we get there, courtesy of WWE.com. Survivor Series 2000 actually happened 2 days before this game came out. So this game came out on a Tuesday, according to what I would gather. But anyway, let's read the game notes, the notes to get you enticed into buying this game. Again, courtesy of SmackDown Hotel. That's going to be confusing at times. SmackDown 2, SmackDown Hotel. Oh my. WWE SmackDown 2 Know Your Role, or Exciting Pro Wrestling 2 in Japan, is a wrestling video game released for the PlayStation by THQ and developed by Yuke's. It is the second title part of the WWF Smackdown series based on the World Wrestling Federation. It is the sequel to... Oh, geez. Sometimes these notes are redundant. I got to start reading them a little bit in advance sometimes, I think. Because some of these notes are redundant. Anyway, Brawl in the Ring, backstage, in the VIP room, the parking lot, or the new restaurant. It doesn't matter where you wage war, because WWF Smackdown 2 Know Your Role takes the wrestling category to all new heights. Choose one of over 50 WWF superstars and compete in all new events. Want to try a little tag team action? Grab a partner and wreak havoc in the new Tornado Tag Team mode. If that's not hardcore enough for you, pull out the ladders and get really nasty. That's right, SmackDown 2 Know Your Role features the ultimate spectacle, the ladder match. This high-flying, hard-hitting action will create an environment never before witnessed in a wrestling game. All right, that sounds pretty exciting, absolutely. It's, like I said, SmackDown 2 expanded upon the original SmackDown. So the original SmackDown was pretty bare bones in terms of game modes and things of that sort. And this one introduced, things like the ladder match and the tag team tornadoes and hardcore matches and the casket match and the Hell in a Cell match, which the Hell in a Cell match in this game is literally just a steel cage with a roof. It's not a Hell in a Cell. It's very bizarre. I'm not sure why they made that decision the way that they did to not, build it around the ring like an actual Hell in a Cell. This game came out in 2000. The first Hell in a Cell was in 1997. By the time this game came out, there had been at least 4 or 5. I mean, come on. There's plenty of examples that they could choose from. They no excuse. No excuse, THQ, for having it wrong. I mean, they got it right later. But ultimately, they kind of dropped the ball on that one. Just a hair, just a smidge of a hair, just a smidge of a hair. But speaking of those gameplay options, we've got all new venues in here. We've got the parking lot, VIP room, dressing room, and the WWF restaurant in New York, or the WWF New York venue. As we already mentioned, all those new game modes: ladder match, tornado tag team match, hardcore matches, casket matches, Hell in a Cell. We've even got an expanded Create a Superstar. As for the overall match types, it's a healthy bunch. We've got singles matches, tag team matches, falls count anywhere, and there's variations on each of these as well, like single, tornado tag, handicap options, manager, no manager. So I'm not going to run through all of those. We've got hardcore matches. The one that I will highlight there is we can have time limit title. So if you kind of remember what they did at WrestleMania 2000, that's pretty much what you can expect from that mode in the game is what I was driving at there. Let's see, move on down the list. We got handicap matches. We got King of the Ring, Royal Rumble, Survivor matches, which is our 3-way, Fatal 4-ways, and Battle Royals. And then for our special matches, we've got Steel Cage, Hell in a Cell, I Quit, Iron Man, Ladder Match, Special Referee, Table, Slobber Knocker, and TLC. We've got a pretty expansive roster for a PlayStation 1 game. Let's, excuse me, run through that really fast. Let's see here. Let's start at the top here. We've got Albert, Al Snow, Big Boss Man, Bradshaw, Bubba Ray Dudley, Bull Buchanan, Chris Benoit, Chris Jericho, Christian, China, Crash Holly, Dean Malenko, D'Lo Brown, Devon Dudley, Eddie Guerrero, Edge, S.A. Rios, Farouk, Funaki, Gangrel, The Good Father, not the Godfather, The Good Father. People remember that, right? When they turned the pimp into the guy that was trying to clean up everything. Yeah, that was a thing. Grandmaster Sexay, Hardcore Holly, Ivory, Jacqueline, Jeff Hardy, Kane, the Cat, Kurt Angle, Lita, Mankind, Mark Henry, Matt Hardy, Paul Bearer, Saturn, Perry Saturn, Rikishi, Road Dogg, The Rock, Scotty 2 Hotty, Shane McMahon, Stephanie McMahon, Steve Blackman, Stevie Richards, Taka Michinoku, Taz, Test, Tori, Triple H, Trish Stratus, The Undertaker, Val Venus, Vince McMahon, Viscera, and X-Pac. And then we had some hidden characters that we could unlock in the form of Billy Gunn, Cactus Jack, Deborah, Gerald Briscoe, Joey Abs, Michael Cole, Mick Foley, Pat Patterson, Pete Gas, Rodney, Shawn Michaels, and Stone Cold Steve Austin. Now, they're not actually unlocked characters, which is very bizarre. You unlock parts, so that way you can create them. You do that via the season mode, which is present in this game as well, in addition to all of the other game modes we talked about. There's the season mode where you play through a calendar year. You've got a series of cutscenes. In fact, a fun trivia note about this game is that if you, where's the note here? In the US version of this game, if you use a computer, you can find a file that has hundreds of unused cutscene taglines for the season mode, including such things as the members of DX kidnapping a character in their DX truck, declaration of a 24/7 hardcore rule, let's see what else we got here. An announcement of a character being in a TV show and a commercial. Crazy stuff for those trivia notes there in terms of the various cutscenes that you can have in the season mode. But the season mode was expanded greatly from the season mode in the original SmackDown. The original SmackDown season mode was pretty cool, but the season mode in SmackDown 2 definitely had a lot more depth to it. I always like playing season modes in these games because, for one, I always, like the idea of touring with a wrestling star or something like that in a video game. Like, I always thought like a sim-based wrestling game where you live the life of a wrestler would be pretty cool. So these season modes, even going back to Attitude, were pretty close to that. Plus, when I was younger, being a sports fan, big time sports fan. Like if sports were on, didn't matter what level, it was majors, minors, college, I consumed it. But I also played the video games and I played those season modes. So my love for season based games has been there for a very long time. And in fact, even as basic and in some cases repetitive or even boring that some of these old season modes may be, you still like them in comparison, and you being me, because I don't know anybody else who feels this way, but in comparison to the mess that the universe mode has become in the 2K games, a mode like this is actually still quite enjoyable. In fact, I can't remember if it's the first SmackDown game or the second, but there is somebody out there that is up to streaming their 9th year. Or not streaming it, but they post. But they've got somebody in the 9th year of the season mode, and that just, to me, speaks to longevity. And I'm sure there's been some repetition at that point in time, 9 years into the game. But, in the WWE 2K universe modes nowadays, you'll be repeating stuff month over month. Sometimes week after week. I've had universe modes where I spent an entire month wrestling or teaming with Rey Mysterio. That was one with Brock Lesnar. Or member of the NWO, teaming with and fighting other members of the NWO. Just absolutely bonkers stuff. But these season modes are always fun to go back and play. In fact, before sitting down to record this episode, as I always do, I pulled out the SmackDown 2 disc and actually had a little bit of panic because I worried I was going to have to delay at least the video side of this because the PlayStation 1 that I have just would not read the SmackDown 2 disc. But my PlayStation 2 did. So that's where the video is actually coming from this week. It's PlayStation 1 in a PlayStation 2. But anyway, when I put the disc into play, the gameplay experience was something. For starters, I was not very good at it at all. I got the hell kicked out of me. In fact, the first match I did was Triple H versus Taz. I don't know why. Those were the first two names that popped in my head. Within seconds of starting the game, Taz came charging at me, took me down with the spear, and that was basically the end of the match. Taz beat the ever-living holy hell out of me, and I lost in about 3 minutes. And then I did a Hell in a Cell match. I can't remember which characters I picked, but or I should say Steel Cage with a Roof. And much like the match with Taz, I got the holy hell kicked out of me once again. So I'm not sure that I could see myself going back immediately to play the season mode in this one. Like I said, and I'll expand upon things in my final review this is not one that I've got a ton of love for. And it made its way on the schedule because I confused it with the original SmackDown. And it was in doing the research that, I made that discovery. But at the same time, I'm a big stick to your list kind of guy. And so I was committed to it. I said, all right, well, I put it on the list, and it just celebrated a 23-year anniversary, so I know that's why it made it on the list. But the driving story was going to be that beach stuff, so lost a little bit there. But from sitting down and playing it just a little bit, I don't know. It didn't feel clean. It didn't feel smooth. Just something about it didn't connect with me. And, I didn't buy my first copy of this game till I was 18, but that was more of a collection thing. So, my SmackDown 2 play is very limited. But I wanted to still examine this game for the show because it's held in such a high regard. And I mean, it's got a lot of great characters. It's got a lot of great modes. The gameplay, I don't know, it follows the same control scheme. Like, there's nothing, I was able to pick up the controls right away. It just, I don't know, something felt off about it compared to the original SmackDown. And then after that, we moved to the PlayStation 2 era. With Just Bring It. Something about this game just doesn't and didn't hit for me, but maybe, because I didn't put the summer in with it, that's part of why it just doesn't have the outstretch of love and emotion and memories and everything, because when this game came out, like I alluded to earlier, I felt it was like a cash grab. It was too much in a year for me anyway. And in 2000, my fandom was pretty high. I was going to pay-per-views, I was going to live events, I was buying merchandise, I was buying championships, figures. It was pretty high. So DVDs too. Can't forget the DVDs. And not just of WWF, I guess, WCW stuff, ECW stuff, independent stuff. The video games were a pricier thing. You have to pick and choose your battles on that one. But I just remember passing on this one out of spite, not out of like, oh my God, this could be a really great game, but out of, no, I still have the original SmackDown. That's fine with me. I don't really care. I don't need to pick this one up. But even now, playing it, these games that get held up in a high regard. Here Comes the Pain, No Mercy, that kind of stuff. You pick those up and you play them, and they're still fun 20 years later. But call this a controversial statement if you must, but I'm not sure that it's that great of a game. And IGN would disagree with me, Game Informer would disagree with me, and GameSpot would disagree with me. IGN gave it an 8.9, Game Informer gave it a 9, and GameSpot gave it an 8.8. I'd give it a 7 at best. I guess we're jumping right into the final review. I guess we're not messing around here in this episode because let's just get right into my overall assessment here. I guess we're not messing around here in this particular episode. Sorry, this may go down as one of the not better episodes because I've been very straight and to the point about this game. But as I said originally, I thought I was going to have this fun story to tell, and it turns out it wasn't connected to this game. So let's get to my final review based on the playing that I have done of Smackdown 2 Know Your Role. Normally I write out my reviews in advance, but this is what I wrote for myself. I said, no need to write it this time. I missed out when it came out, and as a result, I don't see it in the same light as everyone else. Focus on that point. Is it a GOAT of wrestling games? Not for me. That's a pretty powerful line, in my opinion, for the review, because when it came out, I missed it because I thought it was a crazy little cash grab. I thought that it was just a stretch of WWE to put out 2 video games in the same year. And in my 15-year-old brain, I always said to myself, there's no way that they did anything that is so revolutionary that I need to buy this game immediately. And so I waited a long time to buy it because, like I said, after this we moved to the PlayStation 2 era, and it's Just Bring It and Know Your Role and Shut Your Mouth. Wait. Know Your Role is this one. Just Bring It, Shut Your Mouth, Here Comes the Pain. So I moved on to the PlayStation 2 era and putting all that time into the game. So just based on that alone, I skipped it. So I get it when I'm 18 is part of my collection. I didn't really put a lot of time into it because, again, I still had that in my brain. I was like, oh, it's just like the original SmackDown. I will play the original SmackDown. Clearly, critics, fans, everybody disagrees with me. So maybe I need to put some time into this game. Maybe I do actually need to play it. Because when I played that Hell in a Cell match, I thought the graphics were really choppy, like super choppy. And I have my glasses on because I will admit I have bad eyesight, and I have no business playing any video game without my glasses on. I will admit that wholeheartedly. I got no business. But with the cage in the way, I felt like the blending wasn't really there. I felt like for how much detail they put into the arenas, we could have had the entrances coming down instead of those weird Titantrons. And that was in the first SmackDown 2. In the original SmackDown, not SmackDown 2. Can't say the first SmackDown 2 in this case because yeah. Anyway, in the original SmackDown, we had those same entrances, so I kind of figured by SmackDown 2 we would have arena entrances, considering it was on the PlayStation 1, and Nintendo 64 games even got arena entrances. Granted, they had looped music, bad samples, Titantrons, that kind of thing. But they still had it. So, to me, SmackDown 2 Know Your Role is just to be fair to it, I'll say that even 23 years later, I guess I'll say my jury is out on it, and maybe I do owe it some time. Maybe I should do it as a live broadcast on YouTube. Maybe I should do some videos on it. Maybe I should really dive in a little bit more than just a few hours before this podcast, and a little more time recording some gameplay to put on the screen here for this podcast. Maybe I owe that to the game, because this is one of the first times that I can think of where a game is held up and people say it's one of the greatest, and I say no. And it's not that I'm an authority on the subject, but usually I fall in line with that kind of stuff. So my final review on it would be that based on what I've experienced, I'd give it a 7 out of 10. I don't think it's as great as everybody else says it is. It's just it is what it is. But what I will commit to here, not necessarily a live stream, but what I will commit to in my own free time is putting in more time with SmackDown to know your role. Maybe I will even actually start a season in my own free time because I'm done with WWE 2K23 at this point. AEW Fight Forever is a pretty dead game to me at this point. So I will at least commit to that. And in a future episode, in the not the near future, but in the future, we'll devote a little time to a follow-up on how I feel about SmackDown to Know Your Role. I think that's pretty fair of me to do, all things considered, because, this episode kind of fell apart. Like, the last two episodes have been kind of weird. Like, SmackDown versus Raw 2008, I'm like, why the hell was this even on the schedule? I didn't like this game. I barely played this game. I thought the 24/7 mode was pretty whack. Even since that episode, I tried to play it again. Turns out it didn't have trophies. I'm like, what's the point? Pretty wild stuff there in terms of like these games ending up on here that it's not necessarily games I loved. And it's not always going to be games I love. There's going to be games that are on here that I thought I would be a fan of that I hated or I didn't like. But this episode in particular suffers because I thought I had a great story to tell and we just completely boofed it and went in the wrong direction. But yeah, so anyway, wrapping up the final review there of the game, getting back to that, 7 out of 10, but I will revisit it, like I said, in a future episode. We'll talk about it again. Before we get out of here, because I forgot to do it in the last episode, and it's a good thing I forgot anyway, because I had the wrong Survivor Series written down. I had the 2008, I had the 2008 results for Survivor Series, but the SmackDown versus Raw 2008 came out in 2007. Wow, my brain just spun a whole bunch on that one. But I had the wrong results written down, so all that ends well is well, right? Indeed. But 2 days before this game came out, the WWE held their annual Survivor Series event. So let's go through the results of that, and we'll kind of get an idea of what was going on in the WWE at the time of this game's release. We had Molly Holly, Crash Holly, and Steve Blackman defeating TNA, the whole unit, in a 6-person tag team match. In fact, I believe this was Trish Stratus's in-ring debut. We had an 8-person elimination tag team match. We had the Radicals, which was Eddie Guerrero, Chris Benoit, Perry Saturn, and Dean Malenko, defeating the team of Billy Gunn, Chyna, Road Dogg, and K-Quick. Chris Benoit and Perry Saturn were the sole survivors. It was at this point in time, I believe Eddie Guerrero is... Are we post? I think we're post the relationship with Chyna at this point in time. At this event, yes, I believe we are post that dynamic. That was a fun relationship, though. Eddie Guerrero and Chyna on TV, and it's kind of funny that we're almost mimicking it a little bit in a way now with Rhea Ripley and Dominic, because in story, Dominic comes from the seed of Eddie. Let's not forget that. He might be Rey Mysterio's son, but he came from Eddie's seed. And, it looks like Dom's following in his father's footsteps by being with a powerful, muscular female companion. Like father, like son. Let's see. Kane defeated Chris Jericho in a singles match. William Regal defeated Hardcore Holly by DQ in a European Championship match. The Rock defeated Rikishi. This was the fallout from The Rock hitting Stone Cold Steve Austin with the car, because he did it for the people and he did it for The Rock. Rikishi being revealed as the guy that ran over Steve Austin with the car was one of the lamest storylines in WWE history, because it would have been better if it was somebody predictable. Like Triple H, they roped Triple H into it as being like an accomplice, because I think they realized that Rikishi on its own sucked. Rikishi and Austin had a match at No Mercy the month prior, and Austin basically murdered Rikishi on paper, or tried to, on pay-per-view. Poor reveal. Up there with the higher power, up there with the anonymous GM. Just poor reveals of characters that could have been something more. Anyway, let's see. Ivory defeated Lita to retain the Women's Championship. Kurt Angle defeated The Undertaker to retain the WWE Championship. This is where he used his twin brother as a stunt. The Undertaker hit a last ride, went for the pin. The referee's like, no. Undertaker's like, what are you talking about? The referee's like, it's not Kurt. And then Kurt came in with the roll-up, 1, 2, 3, and he retained the championship. Kurt Angle's run with the WWE Championship between No Mercy 2000, when he won it from The Rock, until I think it was No Way Out 2001 when he lost it back, was a great little run. Kurt had a good time. Kurt was a good champion. Let's see. The Hardys and the Dudleys defeated Edge, Christian, and the RTC in a Survivor Series contest. Our sole survivor in that one was Jeff Hardy. And then in the main event of the night, Steve Austin and Triple H went to a no contest when Stone Cold Steve Austin committed murder. This time on live pay-per-view. He tried with Rikishi and he failed. But this time he had Triple H in a car on a forklift, and he dumped it over. And Triple H was squished inside the car. They came up with some excuse for how Triple H didn't die. I can't remember what it was, but at the end of the day, that's what they did. They came up with an excuse for him not being dead. But they tried to do the whole car thing again. I think it was Chris Benoit lured Steve Austin out to the parking lot, but then Austin was gone, and he had the giant forklift, and he lifted the car, and he dumped it over, and that's how the pay-per-view went off the air, was with Stone Cold Steve Austin basically exacting his revenge on Triple H. And then, of course, 6 months later, they were aligned. Was this November? By April? Yeah. 6 months later, those guys were aligned. Two-man power trip. Weird way to get together. Austin's logic on that eventually was, well, if you were going to align with somebody, wouldn't you want to align with the guy that would do to you what he did to me? And I was like, it's a runaround way of making sense out of things, but okay. What an interesting time that could have been if that had gone more than like 6 weeks. Austin, McMahon, and Triple H all together. But WWE 2000 was an interesting time, certainly more interesting than WCW, which was an absolute train wreck by November of 2000. Of course, they would close their doors for good in March of 2001. And in November of 2000, ECW is also quite a train wreck. I know we talk about WWE at the time of the release, but, wrestling as a whole. ECW is winding down their TNN deal. They're winding down their TV stuff. They're also going to close their doors in early 2001. But I think at this point, my friends, it's a good time to wrap things up here on this week's edition of Dropkicks and Joysticks. As I said, I will commit to playing some more Smackdown 2 Know Your Role. Everybody gave it 8.8s, 8.9s, and 9s. So maybe I need to revisit this game because I don't feel the love that everybody else feels. So I will promise to you that I will go back and play this game, and I will report it right here on Dropkicks and Joysticks. And on this show, next week, we'll talk about a game that I played simply by chance because it had New Japan Pro Wrestling attached to it. I had no idea about any of the characters. It had been over 10 years since I had even seen New Japan Pro Wrestling content. And what really got me excited was my tag team partner, the former ultra-violent assassin Rob Marsh. He was so excited about this game. So next week, we're going to talk about Fire Pro Wrestling World. We're going to talk about the initial PC release. We're going to talk about the PlayStation 4 release. We'll tell some road stories even, because it involves my tag team partner. He's the one that turned me on to this. And we'll talk about how it reignited my interest in New Japan Pro Wrestling, which I still follow to this day, loosely, not super close, but I still follow it to this day because I played Fire Pro Wrestling World. In fact, I still dip into Fire Pro Wrestling World every once in a while, and I'll be dipping into it again this coming week to get ready for the show next week. So until then, my friends, stay safe out there, stay happy out there, and have fun out there, because that's really all we can do. And I'll see you right here next week on another episode of Dropkicks and Joysticks.